Welcome to the Small Business Matters podcast, where we talk to business experts and go beyond the trends to find out what's working for small businesses on Main Street and online. Now, let's get down to Main Street.
Millions of new businesses are launching around the country, and many of these businesses are being run by new entrepreneurs, people who might not be familiar with the accounting side of a business. So we thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about setting your accounting systems up for success with Cassie Saquing. Cassie is a money mindset and business management coach. She helps business owners kill the hustle and make a profit. And as a soul-centered financial and money mindset coach, she is also a dedicated wife and mother to 4 children. In her early days, she applied her skills and education by launching a successful 7-figure daycare business. Now she teaches other women to scale their mindset and their income. Cassie, welcome to the Small Business Matters podcast.
Hi, Gary. So nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
A foundational step in any business is figuring out how to track revenue. Can you talk for a little bit about the difference between cash-based and accrual-based accounting methods and why it's important to pick the right one, perhaps include a few examples of businesses that book revenue in each method?
Sure, absolutely. And to put a little disclaimer in here, I am not an accountant, but I can explain the basics. And I think that should give us all hope, especially if you're starting a new small business. You don't have to have certain degrees. You just have to have the right kind of knowledge. And I love that we're talking about that today to support you better in starting your business or, growing your business. So cash basis is really the most straightforward way. It's, you only record something like a income when it's actually received into your bank account. And, we use this in small businesses. A lot of times service-based businesses do very well with cash basis accounting. Whereas accrual accounting is like, money is accounted for before it's received. Maybe there's, you have 30 days to pay it. It's an aging kind of receipt. But in accrual accounting, you process it as though it's already received. You may not have it in hand yet. And same thing like expenses for accrual, you're already recording them before they're actually paid out. And the reason for that is because you may have, I recommend this for product-based businesses that they have to purchase out a lot of things ahead, in terms of inventory tracking. Accrual method is really great for that because you have all these upfront expenses, but then it might show over a long-term, revenue projection. So I know if you're also going to get ready to sell your business, that accrual is a great way to show a potential interested buyer who there's a long-term, strategy for, future income coming in, and they can show it right away so that it's not just so up and down, So cash accounting tends to be a bit of a pendulum because you're waiting for that money to come in. So it becomes very important to have your revenue on point and your follow-up methods to get all the revenue in that you can during that before the month's close.
Mm-hmm. So the business owners really got to think hard before they get too far into running the business, how they want to set all of that up. At Experian, we try to emphasize the importance of maintaining separate bank accounts for business and personal, and commingling of funds can spell trouble. Why is it such a taboo for a business to do it? And why is a dedicated bank account so important?
That's such a good question because I think a lot of it is we have these feelings around the taboo, right? Oh, this is not a good thing, but why? Why is it not a good thing? Is it just because, on the most basic of levels, it's just hard to track and hard to sort through at tax time? That's definitely a big piece of it. But really, really, you want to have your funds kept inside of your LLC or your business. Maybe it's an S Corp. It really protects your assets, like your personal assets in case of any legal actions against your company. So really, it's the idea of if you're having a hard time separating and it's not a big deal, I'll just sort through it later. Just want to encourage you to make sure that you want to protect your own personal assets that way. That's really the biggest reason that might motivate any business owner to keep their personal funds separate from their business funds as well.
Yeah, and that includes tracking all of your receipts, right? And filing them in the right place. I mean, that's actually an easy area where you can slip up, right? Would you recommend, separate credit cards to go with the banks?
Absolutely. I'm probably a little bit too account happy when it comes to my business accounts. I have a different account for a lot of different reasons. I use them like buckets. And it's just because my human nature, I'd rather just see what I actually have for these particular purposes. But I do recommend having a credit card because obviously there's an easier way to protect you in case there's fraud. It's not just taking it out of your bank account, your actual cash flow. But I practice having a no debt business, so we pay off the credit cards every week. So it's flexible, and obviously when you're tracking those, you track them according to QuickBooks standards, and accounting for everything properly. Doesn't really matter ultimately what bank account you use. That's more just for cash flow purposes. But you just want to make it easy on yourself, right? Like, how can I make it easier on myself as a business owner? I even, so that I don't mix them up in my wallet, I take my credit card and write like business across with a Sharpie because, we're distracted, right? I like pull it out, I'm like, oh, that's not my business card. Okay. Sometimes we have to do these silly things to help ourselves stay in line for tax time.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and from a business credit standpoint too, I mean, the advantages are pretty obvious, but maybe not so apparent to the new entrepreneur. If you can start showing a history of paying the credit card bill, paying that business credit card under the name of the business, this triggers to the bureau that there's history going on and there's a business that's functioning there. It does take a little while for that personal credit transition to happen, where you can rely solely on the credit of the business. But in the early days, if you can just at least establish that separation, it's a good idea. Now let's talk a little bit about tracking and systems, right? So there's a lot of accounting programs out there. What should a business owner or entrepreneur know about choosing the right accounting package? Does the business owner need to know all about accounting software to pick the right one? How do you make the right choice?
Yes, that's so important. And like I said, you want to make it easy on yourself and find a software that is very intuitive that you can follow along. And I recommend QuickBooks. They do have a very low entry level. Let's say you're a sole proprietor starting out, they have a very low threshold, like a monthly fee for that. But it's super helpful because most accountants will use, that's kind of the gold standard. They'll use QuickBooks and you can easily share it with them so they have access. So they can update it without you having to like print out massive files or, tons of statements and everything. Luckily, everything is so electronic now that, you can just upload your, all the information, the bank statements to them as needed. But I do recommend QuickBooks. And then there are other softwares out there that may be free, but the whole point of it is to track what you're doing, track the activity of the business so that you're always on top of what's happening in your business and not waiting till, month's end to go back and check. And the best way is just to get the right software. We all need software for our businesses, even for simple things like emails, the QuickBooks or any other type of, tracking software for your business finances is just highly recommended from the gate, like right from the get-go. Just start, I've gone into other people's businesses and we've tried to go back in time and update everything. And it just takes a lot more time and sorting. And it's not likely you'll remember what happened in the business a whole year ago or 2 or 3, so just start it right away, even if it's super simple and you need to get help with that. It's just really important to do.
So I'm sure they must offer training on that. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm a marketing guy, right? So I'm not sure I would know exactly how to set up, a QuickBooks file for my business. Is it complicated?
It isn't. Actually, I've used QuickBooks for almost 20 years now, way back in the old days when it was just on the desktop only. And it's like, I'm dating myself here, but now everything is, I recommend online version. And they have, in the past couple of years, they've actually really improved the software and the usability of it. So they'll even preset up for you these generalized business, types of accounts and types of classifications that you can choose. And like I said, I do recommend, using an accountant that they could help support you in that. And depending on the complication or, how complex your business might be, and depending on if it's cash or accrual. But these things, they do take some time. And there's so many support YouTube videos. I won't even recommend which one, but there's so many. You can go online and just watch the basics. And it takes time in the beginning. But like anything, it's worth it, because then you're saving yourself so much hassle at tax time, and also knowing what your business profitability is as well.
So how can business owners keep a good pulse on the health of their business, and how can good bookkeeping aid them? And are there core reports the owner should be familiar with? Can you explain the essential reports?
Absolutely. So I think the main thing that people need to remember is just staying on top of tracking, keeping up with your bookkeeping, whether that's paying someone to do it. There are a lot of people who do it remotely now, which is great. Or, doing it yourself. I would recommend doing it weekly at the longest. I tend to do it probably every few days and update the books and make sure that, there's no fraud going on, or, the money that I'm surprised about or anything like that. But basically tracking every dollar on a weekly basis will help. Like, just don't wait till the end of the month when it's kind of a history report and you're looking back like, oh no, what happened 3 weeks ago? Because what'll happen is, as you're tracking live, you'll be able to change the behavior in your business, right? You'll make a little bit different decisions. And part of the tracking process that I do recommend is, running a P&L, which is a profit and loss statement. It's all the revenue that comes in based on category, and then all the expenses that go out based on category. So as you're tracking, you'll see what's coming in and out, and you'll be able to make sure that those things are correct, first of all, and that, do you want to be spending that money based on the revenue of that week? Some people are, a little bit low margin type of businesses, and that's fine, but you have to make sure that you're really on top of that. And then, make those business behavior changes based on your projection for the following week or the next 4 weeks. And, a lot of times we think we're kind of just, we have to go with the wind and whatever is happening to us. And we're a little bit like, I don't know how to make more revenue. But really, we have so much more control than we realize. And part of that is this process of doing the weekly P&L, and then, of course, monthly. And then also just making sure that you look at your balance sheet, making sure that, your debts, all these things are adding up and making sense to you based on what is happening in your business. And that's the way to keep a good pulse on it. The numbers don't lie. And, business owners who are really good at not just making a profit or making more revenue. And we always think like, gotta make more money. But actually on the other end, how are you tracking those expenses is really a great way to catch the money without it kind of going out the back door. Because I always say you can make $1 million, but if you spend $1,000,001, it's not a good business.
No.
It's not working for you, right? So I think that that's really a great way, is just staying on top of it weekly and just knowing what's going on in your business.
So when the pandemic hit, before any relief was announced, many small businesses had to stay afloat by dipping into reserves. Can you talk about what cash reserves are and how they are set up in the accounting system, and why they're so important?
I always emphasize, and obviously it's going to be showing up in your accounting system because you're tracking all your revenue. And how I do it is because I focus a lot on cash flow, and because cash flow is the lifeblood of any business, right? And it's very important to know that you have enough money to make it to the next payday or revenue, deposit. So I do really, obviously everything will be tracked through your QuickBooks and your accounting system, but I always recommend putting aside a top line percentage from the top line revenue. Like every dollar that comes into your business, setting aside like 3 to 5%. Even if you feel like you can't do that yet, start with 1% and then try to build it up from there, because it's a behavior switch. So start it, putting away money. And I know prior to the pandemic, we all thought, we'll put some away. And it's kind of like a little bit more here and there if there's windfalls. But now I know my business partner and I are very purposeful in how much we put away, simply because we did have to use a lot of our reserve money, and it did help us. And I know a lot of businesses in our area shut down and didn't reopen. And I'm really grateful for that, honestly. But being proactive and not just waiting until, oh, what's my profit margin? What's my, what's left over? You'll never save that way. Right. And I think that that's so important to just start from the top and just set it aside. And that's where I get a little crazy with all my accounts, move money all the time. And I do that on a weekly basis so that, we make sure that every dollar is split up into different ways. And we proactively do that. So I'm definitely into more like habits and behaviors and like making things easy. And then, of course, it's all tracked in QuickBooks so that you can see on your balance sheet how much you have saved aside.
Interesting. So you learned something from the pandemic, and that's now a practice that you are exercising. Because we could have another pandemic someday. We know one's going to eventually happen again. It's interesting. It's how that has changed how you look, and your particular industry category. Daycare centers, they closed,
Yeah.
right? But and it was really hard on that particular industry. Was there any other learnings from that you took that you're kind of applying in your business today?
Well, I would say the biggest learning is my personal growth and my humility level, right? I was like, oh, I got this, and I know how to run a business. And we're actually coming up on our 20th year in 2025. So it's exciting, right? That's a long-term business. And really proud of that. But how I show up and how I treat other people, how I manage the team, I'm much more appreciative. And what that shows, it comes out in the way we give bonuses to our team members. And, that's part of how we manage the profits as well. Like we share it and we look at our team, not that we didn't before, but so much more. Like my heart has kind of changed in a lot of good ways that I just see them as like, wow, if we didn't have these people, we just wouldn't have a business. And I don't know, we love our team so much and I'm so grateful and I can't show enough gratitude to them. And I actively look for ways to show that and able to do that because of this practice of, weekly updating, weekly transferring of funds and automating some of those behaviors so that I don't have to be worried about cash flow all the time. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to be scrambling, for, oh my gosh, how are we going to make it? It's just like money, obviously it's on our minds, but it's not because of behavior changes. We're able to really focus on the team better and growing the team, investing in the team, getting them the right training and the resources they need as well. So I know that's not exactly about money, but it really is because money, where we put our money shows kind of where our hearts are, right? And I think it's really important to invest in the team as well.
Well, right. And I think you're investing in the longevity of your business at the end of the day, because if you have a happy team, well, I heard Richard Branson say something very profound once where he said, if you take care of your team will take care of your customers, and that will take care of everything else. If you get that right with your team, you're going to have a successful business. And you say that your anniversary, you're doing something right there. A lot of businesses don't make it beyond 2 years. So congratulations on.
Thank you. I can't believe it's going to be 20 years. I'm still in shock and I'm just really grateful. Really grateful. Yeah.
Well, as we record this interview, it's tax time in the US. What are the reports that are going to make for a stress-free tax filing if you're a business owner?
I think a lot of it has to do with not just reports, like we talked about the P&L. That's super important. I do recommend at tax time to run a annual P&L looking back over 2023 or whatever year this is, that you're looking back from the prior year and you're doing a month over month report so that you're looking at each month in a column and then do the full annual report, obviously the summary, and then upload that for your accountant as well as giving them access to your books. And so those are like the basic, foundational, you're definitely running a P&L, and then send them the balance sheet also from the prior year. But beyond that, organizing yourself and your receipts. I know, Gary, you mentioned the receipts before and scanning them all in, organizing them by month. I know it seems like, what a hassle. But I promise you, if you ever get audited, it'll just be like, oh, here, click on this Google folder. It's all here from this year or these years. organize yourself, do a whole year and then do like subfolders by month. That's kind of what we do. And making sure that those don't get lost because, floods can happen, your paperwork can go missing, making sure to really make everything into a digital version of that so that it's super easy to find and pull up, especially. And then we, share those and upload those to our accountant as well as needed. So I think, making sure you run the right reports, but then also tracking and scanning all your receipts, just making things easy for your accountant to be able to sort through those things will really help. Looking for as many tax deductions as you can within legal limits, of course, and those boundaries. You want to stay in integrity, making sure that you're taking advantage of those, anything like 401k or anything else that you can do to support your team or yourself as a business owner is just super important to get as many tax deductions as possible too.
Yeah, have a good office scanner. Have one that's easy to use. You just drop them in and have it appear in a folder so you can catalog it.
There's also, you could get a free, I use like Cam Scanner as well. That's a free app that you can use with your phone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, my dad always told me, son, always play to your strengths. Have you met business owners who are hands-on in running their business, but just not interested in the accounting side of things? And how do you work with these kinds of entrepreneurs?
You know what? I think I really feel that because a lot of business owners are doing their passion, right? They're expressing their creativity through their business. Maybe if they're creating a, service package, or maybe you're a coach or you have a product-based business you've always dreamed of, and it just gets very overwhelming very quickly. I do recommend that if you're not able to take the time or to have the desire at all, I do recommend hiring a bookkeeper, someone who can, keep track of your books, making sure that you're doing it properly so you don't have to go back over years and redo everything. And then hire an accountant, of course. But I think a lot of people get stuck, Gary, with cash flow because, you can do everything right with your accounting. You can make sure that, all the percentages add up to 100%. But then how do you pay for things in the right timing? How do you have enough for payroll to pay your either payroll or you have contractors in your business? And I think a lot of times cash flow is really what is the sticking point for most business owners. So that's what I love to do is help people just get more cash flow in their business, find money in your business. If you've been operating more than a year, it's time to go through and kind of do a cleanup and go find more money and make some decisions for yourself. And I recommend doing that every quarter. But that's what I love to help with is I know how to do bookkeeping, but I also, how do we change our behavior around keeping more cash flow in our business is just super important. So
all about cash flow. Any final advice for business owners who might feel maybe a little overwhelmed or unprepared for entrepreneurship?
Gosh, this is more of an inspirational moment for me because I think, I do not have an MBA. I am a mom of 4. I have my education degree. I'm not an accountant, but I love what I do. And I found ways to do it, although it probably took me longer in some cases. I probably should have reached out for help sooner. But I learned and I grew and I changed my mindset. And if I can do it, I feel like anyone can do it, right? I mean, I feel as though don't get discouraged. There's so much help out there. And, there's a lot of resources for people. And just to realize that if you have that passion to start your business, if you're really, really focused on it and you're excited about it, you can always find a way to make it work. You can always find that way. If you get overwhelmed, take a break, take a breath, restart tomorrow, give yourself grace, but keep going forward. And that's really, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I'm just the person who just refused to give up. And I'm like, okay, start over. Really, the more resiliency you can build, the longer you'll stay in business for sure.
Awesome. Well, Cassie, this has been super helpful. Where can our listeners find out more about you?
I always tell everyone to find me on Instagram. I'm actually at Profit Passion Academy on Instagram. And all my information is there. There's the links there, and you can find a little bit more about me and how to find more money in your business. And, there's a lot of free offers that I have in there for people. So I would love to help you do that, to help you stay afloat and keep your business going, right? That's my passion, to help people in business.
That's great stuff. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for coming on Small Business Matters.
Thank you so much, Gary. I really appreciate it.
We're celebrating Women's History Month at Experian and just published 2 very helpful articles on the blog. Emily Garman shares Small Business Grants for Women, a great resource. According to the National Women's Business Council 2023 annual report, women-owned businesses now represent 39.1% of all US businesses, generating a whopping $2.3 trillion in revenue. Yet they still only receive a mere 2.8% of all venture capital funding. The article lists dozens of private, state, and federal grants available to small businesses, along with dozens of business grants for women of color and LGBTQ+ business owners, and strategies for applying for funding. Our second post talks about small business loans for women business owners. This one discusses how traditional small business loans from banks work and highlights alternative funding sources such as fintechs, CDFIs, and crowdfunding. We also talk about the role of the Small Business Administration in guaranteeing loans, along with a checklist of required documents for loan applications, 2 very helpful resources. And you can find both of those articles at experian.com/SMB Matters. And please subscribe for more helpful tips and advice from Experian. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. For any resources mentioned on the show today, visit our show notes over at experian.com/SMB Matters, and be sure to subscribe to our blog for articles and tips to improve your business credit. And if you're new to the show, be sure to follow us. And if you love it, let your friends know or tag us on Instagram. We are at ExperianBIS, #SMB Matters. Drop us an honest review and rating on whichever platform you're listening on. And if small businesses matter to you, shop local or reward them with your business online. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Small Business Matters podcast.